What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to bring you a full upper and lower body workout day, and I just wanted to talk about the different movements that I'm doing. This video is a little bit different format than the previous, but I wanted to be able to talk about each thing in depth. So starting off this upper body day, I started with push press, working up to a 5x5 at like roughly 75% of my push press max. Trying to get into some overhead volume with slightly heavier weights. With that, we started off with very lightweight, 95 pounds, doing higher reps, getting the movement prepped and warmed up, and then moving on to 115 here. Just making sure that I fully extend overhead and that I'm driving with my lower body, and then fully locking out my knees at the top, because that's how the push press movement works. So with my overhead movements, I'm going to vary it during the week. From one day I'll do a push press day, and then I'll do a push jerk day, which the push jerk is just simply where you are going to basically squat under the bar after pushing it overhead. You should be able to push jerk more weight than you can push press. And then I'll also work on my split jerk, which is where one foot goes forward, the other goes back. And that's just because I am passionate about weightlifting, and I'm trying to improve my overhead jerk strength. So this workout, like I said, was a 5x5, working up here to 165. This, I think, was my last set. And just focusing on technique, bracing hard into the belt, and then pushing overhead as forcefully as possible. Because this is where you're going to make the strength gains in order to improve your overhead ability and eventually get heavier with the movement. And then from there, I moved on to some pull-ups, some weighted pull-ups. So I'll usually do pull-ups 2 to 3 times a week, and one of the days is going to be higher repetition range, like 4 sets till failure, and then the other day, like this day, is going to be lower repetition range with weight, with 25 pounds here. Thankfully, my garage is a little lower, so I'm able to fully extend my legs. Ideally, you want to have a pull-up bar where you can fully extend your body. You don't have to bend your knees, because that could mess up your back, and it's not as fluid of a movement. And then I'm also using weightlifting straps here too, so that I can focus on the pull-up itself, not have to worry about my grip strength, because that's going to fail sooner than my actual pull strength, because I'm actually doing them weighted. Right after that, I move into some dumbbell bench press, working a higher repetition range. I think I did like 14, 12, 10, 8 here. Focusing on technique and making sure the dumbbell goes all the way down and pressing hard. And then I superset my dumbbell bench press here with some dumbbell chest supported rows, which is one of my favorite back exercises right now. Keeping it relatively simple. So with this is just using the bench as your support, and then tucking in with your legs or with your feet at the bottom of the bench, and then just trying to pull with your mid back. Work your like mid upper back area. This is definitely like one of the best movements I've tried in order to target that area. But these movements are always going to be a little bit different each workout that I do, or each upper body workout that I do. So the next day that I do upper body within my workout segment, I'm going to probably do barbell bench press, and then I may even do barbell row, or I'll do like a T-bar row, to just vary the row in some form. It's extremely important to vary each movement slightly so that you work smaller muscles that aren't necessarily targeted if you do the same movement over and over again. That was my problem when I did powerlifting, is I always did barbell exercises, and then that just creates imbalances because there are certain muscles that you're not going to directly target, or not target as actively as you would other muscles. And I've said in previous videos before, it's extremely important that you work your back more, if not at least equally, to your chest, so that you can keep your shoulders and keep a good posture, keep your shoulders healthy and just your overall ability overhead better, because you have a better back to support pushing overhead. And then I got into a circuit here. I believe this circuit was 4 rounds for time, and it was just a sandbag carry with a dumbbell. This is a little bit more functional. 100-pound sandbag on one shoulder, 50-pound dumbbell on the other hand, trying to activate that core strength. And then I rotated halfway, switching the dumbbell and the sandbag on each shoulder. Then I got directly into 16 calories on the rower. I like to, with my circuits, always include a cardio piece, whether it's the air bike or the rower or jumping rope or even running. That way you kind of get your heart rate up, and then they're also really simple movements too, so it's kind of a way to recover before you get ready to move on to your next movement. The next movement here is going to be bar dips. I believe it was 14 reps. Focusing on banging them out quick. Keeping tension on the triceps, not necessarily fully extending at the top. And then the last movement was some hang dumbbell power clean and push press with, I believe, a 50-pound dumbbell. Focusing on like that motor skill with a slightly heavy weight, not too heavy, because it's at the end of the circuit, so we don't want to make it too heavy and potentially hurt ourselves. But this is like a constant circuit. So I go right into the sandbag carry right after this to keep the heart rate up. Make it more functional, especially for like the job of being a firefighter, because on a fire you're going to be constantly going. Moving into the lower body workout day, the first movement of the day was snatches. So I think here I was doing a power snatch into a snatch into overhead squats, and then in this portion I was just warming up with slightly lighter weight. When I warm up on snatches, I like to do some muscle snatches towards the beginning to focus on fully extending, because that's a problem I have with my snatch. I don't extend very well. And then when you do that, it's kind of like you don't necessarily need to fully extend with a lighter weight, so that when you get to the heavier weights, you're more ready to go. This here is probably my last warm-up. Then I get into a 4x5. 1 power snatch, 1 snatch, and then 3 overhead squat. Lately I've been doing higher rep complexes because I'm trying to improve my overhead mobility. Do more overhead squats to make me more stable in the bottom position, so that eventually my snatch increases. That was the first set, and then I believe this is the last set. And then I also try to use hook grip at least one of the days when I snatch. More specifically, the days where there's not very many hang snatches. So that was this day for this training. From there, I moved right into some cleans, a clean complex. With this, I did 1 power clean into 1 squat clean into 1 split jerk directly into 2 overhead squats. So right now, my clean strength is definitely higher than my overhead strength, my split jerk strength. So I try to do the split jerk or the overhead portion of the clean complex at the beginning, so that the technique's a little bit better. I'm less fatigued in the set itself. And then just getting in the overhead squats to get that lower body work in. I'll typically move up in increments of roughly 30 pounds And then in the beginning, I'll try to do more split jerks because that's what I'm worse at. That's what needs more work. And then right here, I get into my actual sets. Same thing. I did 4 sets of 5. Same rep range as the snatches. I just recently changed the foot that I'm split jerking with, the foot that goes forward. And I've noticed that it's actually a lot better than the other foot forward, than my left foot forward. But it's still catching up in terms of strength. My issue was I used to snatch way more, or at the beginning I was much worse at the snatch, so I would prefer to snatch so that I could get better, and then I kind of neglected my clean, so my clean is not necessarily as strong. But over time I'll be able to progress both. I love doing these Olympic movements because they're basically full body movements, and you get the best of both worlds when it comes to doing them. It's important to work on your explosive power and strength at the same time. After the 2 first movements, I moved on to some clean deadlifts. So that's just basically a deadlift with the clean positioning to work on my posterior chain directly. I believe here I did 4 sets of 6. Focusing on staying over the bar a little bit more than I would with a normal deadlift, just because that's what you need to do when you're doing cleans. And these are all just things I learned over time by watching YouTube videos and whatnot. Obviously, I'm not the best Olympic weightlifter. There are plenty of people on YouTube that are much better than me. There are Olympians on YouTube that offer advice, but this is just work for me over time, and I wanted to show how I've progressed. And then after all the compound movements, I get into some accessories. It's extremely important to do your accessory work to prevent injuries. I've noticed that in the more recent time, that when I focus on my accessory work, I feel much healthier. So with that, I use the monkey feet here to do some weighted hip flexor raises, working on the hip flexor, because it's never really challenged in this range of motion. It's only really challenged when you're squatting in the opposite direction. So I like to increase the hip flexor strength, because sometimes it can be lacking, be a little bit weaker, and then that causes hip pain and other issues, back pain. If you have tight hips, it's going to put more strain on your back, or weak hips. With this, I try to make sure that I'm bracing my core the entire time so that I'm activating my core muscles, keeping everything tight and moving properly. And then after these hip raises, I did 3 sets of both of these movements, but I got into some ab wheel rollouts, which is a really good ab exercise for overall core strength. Trying to keep my arms straight, relatively straight, and extending as far out as possible to directly challenge that core. But there's 2 workouts that I typically do. That's what they typically look like for each week. Varying relatively in terms of the rep ranges, and the movements will slightly be different. But that's kind of how I've progressed over time and what I really like to focus on. So like with the upper body workout day, I got some cardio piece into it, and then with the lower body day, I got some accessory work in to try to vary the training as much as possible. Sometimes it will be opposite, more accessory work on the upper body day, and then on the lower body day, a circuit. But that's it, really. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more content.